चढ़ाऊं। हे पावन परमेश्वर मेरे, मन ही मन शर्माऊं। तू है या परंपार दयालु, सारा जगत संभाले। जैसा भी हूँ मैं हो तेरा, अपनी शरण लगा ले। तू है अपरंपार दयालु, सारा जगत संभाले। जैसा भी हूँ मैं हूँ तेरा, अपनी शरण लगा ले। छोड़ के तेरा द्वार दाता, और कहीं ना जाऊं। हे पावन परमेश्वर मेरे, मन ही मन शर्माऊं। छोड़ के तेरा द्वार दाता, और कहीं ना जाऊं। हे पावन परमेश्वर मेरे, मन ही मन शर्माऊं। छोड़ के तेरा द्वार दाता, और कहीं ना जाऊं। हे पावन परमेश्वर मेरे, मन ही मन शर्माऊं। छोड़ के तेरा द्वार दाता, और कहीं ना जाऊं। हे पावन परमेश्वर मेरी, मन ही मन शर्माऊं। छोड़ के तेरा द्वार दाता, और कहीं ना जाऊं। हे पावन परमेश्वर मेरे, मन ही मन शर्माऊं। हरे Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna. We welcome all the devotees in today's session. Today we are very fortunate to have the association of His Grace Brahmatirtha Prabhu. His Grace Brahmatirtha Prabhu is a senior disciple of Srila Prabhupada, and earlier as he was known as Bob Cohen, and we all know that he had a very in his initial conversations with Srila Prabhupada were recorded and later published in a book entitled Perfect Questions, Perfect Answers, which is very, very interesting and knowledge-giving book. So, and he is also a board member at Krishna House, a professional meditator, and advisor for the EPA, and the director of the City of Gainesville Planning Board, and he is contributing in various ways for Srila Prabhupada's mission. So we are very fortunate to have with us His Grace Brahmatirtha Prabhu at this moment to guide us, to inspire us. So let us welcome and express our gratitude to His Grace Brahmatirtha Prabhu by one time loudly chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. His Grace Brahmatirtha Prabhu ki, Srila Bhakti Charu Swami Guru Maharaj ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Yes, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Om Jnana I've actually, to some degree, been in great anxiety about this class. I mean, due to our lockdown, I'd listen to more classes and give more classes than I ever have in my life. But I've spoken several times about Bhakti Swami, and it's a very, as it is for you, it is for many of us, a very emotional issue because we all loved him so much. And there's a reason why we loved him so much. The reason is really simple. He loved us so much, and his love was palpable. We could touch it, we could feel it. When I had my lunches and dinners with him, we could taste it. And the love he would consistently offer to everyone, and without judgment. So I've been asked to speak today on some of my experiences with Prabhupada, and I'm going to relate that to some of my experiences with Bhakti Charu Swami. But I have all my heartbreaks, especially for all of you. And the reason why this class is the hardest I spoke at is a few years ago when the GBC meeting was in Ujjain, I got to visit Ujjain. I got to meet many of you. And I had heard of the project, seen pictures, but I didn't imagine how wonderful it was. And the wonder wasn't the marble buildings and the temples and the wonderful accommodations and the several pounds I gained eating the prasadam. The wonder wasn't all of that. That was wonderful. The wonder was, when I got there, I immediately understood this is Bhakti Charu Swami's home. And the way I understood that is because one of Bhakti Charu Swami's special qualities has been his hospitality. Famous meals and taking care of every little detail. Swaha, Ambrisha's wife, was speaking the other day how she finished her meal, and then the server comes by wanting to offer water to wash, but she felt funny doing that at the table, so she went to go to the bathroom. And Bhakti Charu Swami got up from his thing and says, no, because he understood right away what Swaha was thinking. Come with me, and took her to his private bathroom. Here, now you can wash up properly here. So in so many little details, Bhakti Charu Swami was, we talk a lot about now about ISKCON caring, how we have to care for our devotees. Oh, Bhakti Charu Swami was the epitome of that. He, in every regard, cared for the devotees. This just a little example I gave. And because of that, there was a great reciprocation with him. People cared for him, loved him. And there's no place that I've been to in the world, I'm sure there are other places like this, that I've personally been to, let's say, where that mutual loving exchange between Bhakti Charu Swami and his associates, followers, God brothers, didn't make a difference, was no more present than in the wonderful place of Ujjain. When I went to Ujjain, I went kicking and screaming. I didn't want to go. I'll explain that. A little bit about me first, so you know. Of course, you all know I joined in India, in Bengal, in Mayapur in early 70s, and we'll discuss some of that. But I have two main services in ISKCON for the last, one for the last 50 years on and off, and the other for the last 20 years. My main service for the last 50 years, and it's come and gone, and it takes up most of my day now, is the Bhaktivedanta Institute for Higher Studies. So I do a lot of activity with the BI, and we can discuss a little later if time allows. The other service I've done for 20 years is one that's extremely dear. Both services are dear to Bhakti Charu Swami, especially the BI, our work with the TOVP. But the work that was particularly dear to him that I've done for 20 years is something called ISKCON Resolve. We're the conflict resolution arm for ISKCON. We're there to resolve conflicts. 20 years ago, Braja Bihari and others got together and said, we need to resolve internal conflicts in ISKCON in a better way than religions usually do. Religions often top down, but we need to do what Prabhupada said, how much you love me is by how you work together, and we need to improve communication, because this is Kali Yuga. And if somebody doesn't believe me, you can just step outside and look. I'll give an example. When I was in Ujjain, I went for a japa walk, and near the temple there's this ball. I saw a shopping mall, an indescript brick building, and I needed some toiletries. I said, okay, I'll wander in there and see what this is about. And I walk into this indescript shopping mall, and inside um, it is on one side a Pizza Hut and the other a Damodar's pizza place. Here I am in Ujjain, and there's a Pizza Hut and then there's a mall and everything Western going on there. And I was thinking, gee, this is strange. And it reminded me of my first encounter with the devotees in India. I was a high school teacher in Bihar. As some of you know, without insulting any Biharis who may be listening, Bihar is not exactly the most progressive state in India. And I was assigned to be a high school teacher in Chaibasa, a town that's now Jharkhand state, but it was Bihar then. And I worked for a few hundred rupees a month for the Bihari State Department of Education. And I used to visit Calcutta. I'd take the overnight train for 4 rupees and just to visit a big city and get away from a very small village I was in. And I'd gone to India looking for spiritual life. It was the same year Radha Swami went to India looking for spiritual life. And the same time Bhakti True Swami, about that time, began his search for spiritual life. And he, of course, coming from India, he decided to start in the West and made it through Iraq and Iran to Turkey and then to Germany, as you all know. So I was looking for spiritual life in India, and I was very disappointed. Now, I'm sure that every one of you is highly familiar with Amazon.com or the Indian equivalent. There are a few competitors in India. And my experience visiting the temples, churches, mosques, looking for a spiritual life. I went to India trying to understand the Gita. I'd read the Gita, not Prabhupada's, it wasn't out yet, but I had read the Gita a few times. I wanted to understand the culture it came from. And when I would go to the churches and temples, I would ask people, what are you here for? And they would say, dowry, money, rain, something. And it was just like Amazon. How does Amazon work? You go and you give your money to Amazon, your credit card, you give them your Visa card, and the next day what you want shows up at your doorstep. And this is what was going on. People would go to whatever the religious institution was. They would sometimes cut off their hair, make a donation, say prayers, do some punya, and the next day wonder, okay, now God, are you going to give me what I asked for? They were treating spiritual life like it was a big Amazon.com in the sky. I was very disappointed. I went all the way to India, lived very, very austere life, said living in a village, a few hundred rupees a month for somebody brought up middle class in the West. That was a little unusual. Got to, suffer through, as we used to call it then, Delhi belly. And nothing made sense. So then I was in Calcutta and I saw a sign, Hare Krishna Festival. This is around October 1971. And so I said, I had seen the devotees in America. I had learned the mantra, not from the devotees, but I had learned the mantra. And I had said, what's this about? So I went to this festival and there was Giriraj Swami. Yeah. And Giriraj Swami was giving a talk, and he was wearing traditional dhoti, kurta. He was Giriraj Brahmachari then, of course. And the Indian audience, it was a very fancy part of Calcutta. They were in suits and ties. And he was saying, and of course, Giriraj Swami came from a very wealthy family. His father was a very famous judge and lawyer, had offered him $1 million to leave the movement. Of course, when Giriraj Swami's father met Prabhupada, he realized Giriraj Swami was in the right place. But that's another story for another day. And he was speaking, and he said, all of you have given up. You've all given up what your culture to go for my culture. You're in suits and ties and dressed so fancy, and you've given it all up. And now it's and I've had everything. I'm from a rich family. I've everything I want, and I've come here to pick up your culture. And I said, finally, after living in India for months and months, finally somebody said something that made sense. And that got me really interested. So now I'm going to jump back to Ujjain. So when I walked into that mall and I saw what was going on there, I said, wow, this is what Bhakti Swami is fighting against. Not that having a mall is necessarily a bad thing or wearing a suit is a bad thing. Prabhupada says so many times the outward dress is not what matters. But giving up that advanced culture, throwing it away, that, it was terrible. It was terrible. And I saw what Bhakti Swami was doing. He was fighting against this, reviving this culture which says the goal of life is to love Krishna. Bhakti Swami talks about how Prabhupada said, in Varnashram, it's really not even for devotees. Prabhupada told him, it's really for the others. It's not even necessarily for the devotees. And Bhakti Swami was giving what India really needed, love and devotion. And to watch him do that was quite a feat. Now, when I said I was kicking and screaming, I didn't want to go to Ujjain. I had had an experience in Vrindavan that was really, really sweet. For years, I was scared of Vrindavan, but reading many books before going, especially Shivaram Swami and Sachinanda Swami's books, praying a lot, I finally started getting a tiny little taste of Vrindavan, something that Bhakti Swami always had all the time. Getting a little taste of it. And then I was called to a GBC meeting and to attend a committee because I do conflict resolution, and there was a conflict. And I didn't want to leave Vrindavan, but it was my duty. I had to go. And Bhakti Swami was chair and really felt that on this particular issue, there was something that I was very familiar with and I would be able to help with. So I said, okay, Bhakti Swami, I shall go. And so I went to Ujjain, and we have an expression in America, I don't know if it translates well, called blown away by the hospitality, the sweetness, the beauty of the temple, the kindness of the devotees, how well every little thing I couldn't even think of was taken care of. And I realized that I was in a temple that reflected the Bhakti Swami that I knew, and that how Ujjain, as a temple, as a community, I understood I was in Bhakti Swami's home. The warmth, the kindness, the etiquette, the devotion, it was wonderful. And of course, the highlight for me there was when Bhakti Swami invited me to, with others, to his apartment for dinner. And it was an extremely controversial issue that could have made a schism in ISKCON. And due to Bhakti Tru's brilliance at inviting the right parties, organizing it the right way, the issue was completely resolved to everyone's satisfaction. And I don't think another GBC chair could have pulled off what Bhakti Swami did. And he just radiated while we were there, that love and calmness. Now, Bhakti Swami was noted for this, being radiant and calm, but not always calm. We had a huge controversy in New York in which a temple was going to, basically a $60 million temple was being absconded by some devotees who had their own plan and practically going to pull it out of ISKCON. Well, two things could get Bhakti Swami riled up, terribly so. One was criticizing Prabhupada, which he would never tolerate, and second, hurting ISKCON. So Bhakti Swami went to New York, soft, mild-mannered, just like in America, some of you may know, we have this very famous comic book, I grew up reading it, called Superman. Some of you may have, I'm sure you've heard of this because it was made into movies. So Superman had two alter egos. One was as Superman, and the other was as a Clark Kent, mild-mannered reporter. And I'm sure some of you have seen this. And so Bhakti Swami was much more in the Clark Kent mood, very mild-mannered, peaceful, loving. But when ISKCON or Prabhupada was attacked, he became Super Swami. And he went into New York in the middle of a chaotic scene, in the middle of a Sunday feast, walked into the temple and declared, this temple is ISKCON's temple and we're taking it back. And he did it. And they tried shutting off the microphone. They tried doing everything, but nothing could stop him. And he became Super Swami. And he succeeded and accomplished it. And it was something to behold. So all of us who have been in ISKCON a long time, almost 50 years for me, we've been through a lot. It's hard to be in ISKCON and not experience post-traumatic ISKCON stress syndrome. And post-traumatic stress ISKCON syndrome is we've all been, any of us been around long enough, we're so immature at times, so much difficulties. We've all had experience of being mistreated, could be by our God brothers, by our leaders, those above us, those below us. We've all been through it. Bhakti Swami has been through it with the rest of us. In America, when you've been in combat, you get a Purple Heart, a special medal to wear when you've been wounded in combat. And all of us, if this was a military, would have Purple Hearts. And Bhakti Swami certainly has had his Purple Hearts and had his times where he has been mistreated and all, but it didn't change his love. Prabhupada said, I love ISKCON, right or wrong. He was paraphrasing the English poet who said, I love thee, England, right or wrong. And Prabhupada said, I love you, ISKCON, right or wrong, because ISKCON was Prabhupada's body, as Prabhupada said. So Bhakti Swami epitomized that affection for ISKCON, knowing that we're all fallible soldiers and we're all going to make mistakes. And I'll give an example of this. Like I said, I do ISKCON resolve work. Well, about 10 years or so ago, I did a complicated ISKCON resolve case. And I worked hand in hand, sometimes every day, with Bhakti Swami. And that's when I really got to know him, because we did a project together, because we knew each other and we'd see each other and talk and joke around even. But then we worked together on a project. That's how we really get to know someone. And one of Bhakti Swami's disciples in India, I'm not going to do names or anything like that, of course, had cheated Bhakti Charu's disciples, other disciples, out of a substantial sum of money. And the case was taken to ISKCON Resolve to see what I could do about it. And there was one devotee in America, a young Indian doctor, who had, this fellow had cheated him out of a substantial sum of money. This young doctor wasn't initiated, was in debt. He had family, even though he was an Indian family, they opposed him being a devotee. He had mortgaged his house. And so here we have a situation where somebody is basically losing their faith in ISKCON entirely, because he was cheated by another devotee who was a disciple of the person he wanted to be his guru. And so how did Bhakti Swami deal with it? The devotee who stole the money, I said to Maharaj, what do we do? I mean, you know, we could go to the police, we could have him banned from ISKCON, you know, not that we would do this, but in India, sometimes people hire the gundas to threaten him. I mean, all these things go on. So I said to Bhakti Swami, look, I did the investigation, this is the evidence. He really forged signatures on papers and stole the money. It happened. And Bhakti Swami said to me, with such sadness in his heart, yeah, looks like he really did it, and I trusted him so much. And he stole money and he ruined the faith of this American doctor who was going to become my disciple. He's done so much damage. And he said, but he's a devotee of Krishna. He's done a lot of service. I'm going to send him a letter saying he should make up for this. But, and I'm going to warn some temples, don't deal with him, because he might cheat you. I have to protect the devotees. But he wouldn't do anything vindictive, wouldn't even call the police, because he knew the police would pick him up. And in India, when the police pick you up, people often confess, because if you're guilty or not, because the police in India, sometimes, I don't know how it is now, but when I used to live there, tactics were not the best of jurisprudence. At least in that part of India. This fellow was actually in Bihar. And the Bihari police at that time were noted for always getting confessions one way or another. So he said, no, it's just between him and Krishna. And he had such compassion in his heart. And then this other devotee, we were able to get a little bit of the money back, not, small percentage. And Bhakti Charu reached out to him to comfort him and got a little bit of the money back somehow or other. And I said, okay, this is a fellow who we'll never see again. And then I went to the Sadhu Sangha festival 2 years ago. I never met this fellow. We talked on the phone a lot, but I never met him. So he's working the check-in desk at Sadhu Sangha this is in America, saw that I was on the list of attendees, waited for me and said, are you Brahmatirtha? I said, yes. She says, I'm so-and-so. I said, I didn't remember that being your name. he said, yes, I'm initiated by Bhakti Charu Swami now. Notice Bhakti Charu Swami, this person who had been cheated by a close disciple of Bhakti Charu Swami, who his family beat him up for trying to be a devotee. Bhakti Charu Swami showed him so much love, comfort, did what he could to get back some of the money, fought so hard for him that this fellow actually became a full-fledged disciple of Bhakti Charu Swami. I thought we would never, this is a fellow we've blown away and would never see again. Now, that is such the rare devotee who can, in times of adversity, offer all of that kind of love. Now, when I had that GBC meeting a few years ago in Ujjain, and we had this huge controversy, and I was brought in to help mediate it and guide it. Bhakti Charu Swami, and there was 3 controversies going on at once, because that's what GBC meetings mean. And so in different rooms, I was in a room with 13 GBCs, and Bhakti Charu Swami was in a room with another 10 over another issue, where breakout sessions all day, intense and all of this. And then Bhakti Charu Swami then would invite select groups to meals with him. And when we would sit with him, you know how elegant he is, and everything is completely pucka. And all the tensions of the day would go away. He'd greet us with that famous smile, say, welcome, welcome. And even though he was fighting all day as chair of the GBC and trying to get cooperation, he would make everyone feel welcome. And it so reminded me of how Prabhupada dealt with things. And how Prabhupada could be a lion one minute, a lamb another minute. One of my favorite stories, I've often told the story, now you all know it, so I'll tell a different version of the story. You all know the orange juice story with Bhakti Charu Swami. Sure, what Prabhupada asked him for orange juice and it took too long. Jagadish Prabhu has the same story. And he told it to me, so I'll tell you that story. So it's so similar. I don't want to repeat the one you already know. So Jagadish, who was Prabhupada's servant, and Prabhupada called him in the bedroom and said, move my bed from one side to the other. And Jagadish said, okay, I'll get some people to help. And Prabhupada said, no, just do it yourself. So Prabhupada goes back to his office. Then Jagadish, it's a big, heavy wooden bed. He's dragging it. It's making these dragging noises on the floor. And rings the bell. Prabhupada goes, why are you disturbing me so much? I'm trying to write. Why are you making so much noise? And Jagadish, he like Bhakti Charu Swami, very sensitive to this. And when Prabhupada would get upset, he would be so forlorn. So he went back, tried to figure out what to do. Then Prabhupada rings the bell again, calls him back in the room and says, oh, don't get upset. Old men get grouchy. And of course, Bhakti Charu Swami tells almost the identical story. And I love that because it tells the human side of Prabhupada. I mean, Prabhupada, as exalted and as wonderful he was just wonderful to be with. Being with Prabhupada, and I was asked to speak on that, being with Prabhupada was sometimes, it could be very intimate. I mean, it was grand, and Prabhupada covered with garlands and sitting on a Vyasasan. That's the grand Prabhupada. But just being one-on-one with Prabhupada, you realize he was a person, a most wonderful person, but very human. In sense, he was approachable. He was vulnerable. He would say things like, oh, I can be grouchy. And he was very, very funny. Now, he was so funny, most of us, it went over our head because there was 50 years difference between us and Prabhupada. And also, Prabhupada was culturally from another place, so we didn't understand the humor. Bhakti Charu Swami actually, and we've talked about this, understood Prabhupada's humor. And of course, he knew the Bengali language. So Prabhupada could be very relaxed with Bhakti True Swami in a way he couldn't be relaxed with others. Because I mean, I saw that when I listened to my conversation with Prabhupada on the recordings. I can see there's so many funny things he said that whoop, went right over my head. So, so Prabhupada we're a personalist in our movement, and Prabhupada was definitely a person. So I was asked to tell some stories of myself with Prabhupada. The first time I met Prabhupada briefly in Calcutta, after I met Giriraj Swami, I went to see I went to the Calcutta temple. I used to started going there. And then one time Prabhupada was there. It was in November of 71. And so I went there and I walked in the room, and it was strange because Prabhupada I was told, I'd been to temple enough times, the Jagat Guru knew everything, and there were two devotees in the back of the room having an argument. I said, why would somebody have an argument in front of the one who knows all the answers? I was very bewildering. And then Prabhupada asked me, well, do you have any questions? I said, yes, why not Buddhism? I'd been to Bodh Gaya, sat under the tree, the sapling of the original tree, they say, where the Buddha got enlightenment. I sat there, sat in my good position, did my meditation, and of course nothing happened. I didn't get enlightened, but thought I'd try it. So, and I had studied Buddhism in college, so I asked Prabhupada, well, why not Buddhism? Well, you know, why, whatever you're doing. So Prabhupada turned to me and said, what did the Buddha say? And I said, well, it was eightfold noble truths and the fourfold path, or was it the four paths and the eightfold noble? Well, and I just started to say, I don't know what the Buddha said. And Prabhupada turned to me and said, so why are you asking about Buddhism? Very good answer, Prabhupada. And then later, I saw the devotees were arguing. One of them was actually about to, as we used to say in those days, bloop, leave Krishna. And he was running into some personal problems with sense gratification. And then I learned why Prabhupada didn't say anything. It's curious. But it became obvious to me. The devotee was disobeying the orders of the spiritual master by whatever his inappropriate activity was. He was leaving his service. And if Prabhupada told him to do something else, then he would have disobeyed another order and committed a greater offense. So Prabhupada had the wisdom, just let them be. Even though here's a new guest here, and Prabhupada wasn't concerned that I would see two disciples having a disagreement. It might impact my faith. He's a Jagat Guru. Prabhupada had no airs about him at all like that. It was just whatever's best for everybody, that's what he did. Very much the same mood of Bhakti True Swami. No airs about him, what's ever best for everybody. And the first time I met Bhakti True Swami, way back in Mayapur, I had this impression of this calmness and no airs about him, but really careful to take care of everybody. I was traveling with my wife and Hriday Nanda Maharaj. We were going from Calcutta to Mayapur, miserable road now. It was much more miserable then. You know, it's like 30 years ago. And we all dreaded the ride. And Bhakti True Swami said, oh, let me arrange. I have an air-conditioned AC car. I'll send for you. So he gave us his air-conditioned AC car. We were so happy. This is, you know, the wonderful life. Imagine in India then AC cars were kind of rare, and he had access to one. Immediately gave it up for his own use. You use it. I'll send it to give you a ride. And so we're in this car driving to Mayapur, and as we go through a village, someone throws a rock and the front windshield shatters, as life would have it. So instead of going in an AC car to Mayapur, we went in a car without a windshield, as fate would have it. So that was our fate. But Bhakti Swami was, and he was so concerned when we got there. Oh my God, what happened? But he was so concerned about taking care of people. And Prabhupada, I saw it as the movement got larger and larger. Prabhupada couldn't take care of 10,000 people anymore on a personal level. But I saw how much he was concerned, how detailed he was concerned about it. Now, I have more I can say about some interactions I had with Prabhupada, but I was told to go for about 40, 45 minutes and stop for questions. So I'll stop if there are any questions, and then I can tell more stories about my interaction with Prabhupada, or about Bhakti True Swami, or I can speak on ISKCON Resolve, or Bhaktivedanta Institute, or I could speak for the next 2 hours on the glories and wonders of ISKCON Ujjain, which is, I probably had the best time I ever had in India, the 3 days I spent in Ujjain, as far as being taken care of, and felt, even though it was such a tense time, GBC meetings are super intense. I had one of the best times I ever had in India. So I'm going to pause here, see if there are questions, and if there's time, I'll tell another story. And I am so honored to be speaking to those in Ujjain. I mean, my obeisances at all of your feet, my condolences to all of you. In one sense, I got to say one more thing. I can't imagine Ujjain without Bhakti True Swami, but that will never happen. Just like when Prabhupada passed on, I could not imagine a day going on without Prabhupada. But Prabhupada's presence, his Vani increased and increased over time, such that now I understand what Prabhupada said when asked about his guru. He says, my guru is with me every moment. And I could never imagine that. But it's come to the point where Prabhupada keeps getting closer and closer. So though without Bhakti's physical presence, I mean, it's going to be heartbreaking. It's going to be heartbreaking for some time. But by following the orders, instructions, hearing, thinking of him, you will, and I know it because I went through this with Prabhupada, every one of you will be closer to Bhakti True Swami than you ever have been. And I give you my word on that. I know that to be the case. I went through this. I was very close with Tamal Krishna Maharaj. When he passed on, again, it was, I couldn't stop crying for almost a year. But I saw the relationships got closer. My own got closer, his disciples. So as much difficulty as this is now, you're surrounded by the loving family, which to a large degree, after Prabhupada's departure, Bhakti True Swami helped create. To a very large degree, you're surrounded by this loving family, God brothers, God uncles, God's nieces, God's nephews, the whole thing. And not only will you get through this closer to Bhakti True Swami, if we always keep focusing on the mood he had, you will all help ISKCON thrive for the glory and service of Prabhupada. And my final thought on this comment is that all of us are very much here for you. So any of us who serve with Bhakti Swami, what we can do for you, it's our personal service to him to be there for you. If some of you want to call me or any of my God brothers and just, can we talk about this? I don't understand what's going on. What does this mean? What was it like when others passed on? Now, as Bourgeon puts it, now that the decade of tears has begun, what do we do? We're there for you. We're there for you with our hearts, our minds, in any way we can be. So don't hesitate to reach out, reveal your mind. I say that from the bottom of my heart. It's what Bhakti Swami did. It's what he trained me to do. It's what Prabhupada wanted us to do. With that, I will stop here and go to questions, but I wanted to make sure I got that in. So, questions. Am I supposed to go to the chat for this? Is that correct?
Yes, Prabhuji. Okay. Or else I can read out the question, Prabhuji, if you...
Yeah, oh, I see the first one here. How a Grahastha Vaishnav can render his services. What are the rules and regulations? Same as for everyone else. There's no distinction. Lord Chaitanya made that distinction. Doesn't make a difference if you're a Grahastha, sannyasi. I mean, Lord Chaitanya, brahmachari, just chant Hare Krishna and do service. Most of us, devotees, will end up Grahasthas. And so some devotees get this mixed up. They see when you become a Grahastha, it's a step down. We used to joke when someone said they want to get married in the early days of the movement. Oh, they're going to settle down, down, down. We used to joke like that. But according to the Varnashram system, Grahastha, not Grihamedi, is a step above Brahmachari. So if one can stay a Brahmachari their whole life, that's great. If that's not their nature, then if Grahastha life, not Grihamedi, is done, then it's a step upward in the Varnashram system of spiritual advancement. And okay, is there another question? So somebody asked, though Bhakti Swami was mistreated and hurt, I've talked about that, he never stopped giving love. How can you have the same attitude? What a nice question to ask. What a nice question. Like I said, every one of us been in ISKCON. We have Purple Hearts, we call it in the American military, where when you're injured in combat, you get this special medal. And when Prabhupada left the planet, Bhakti Swami is one of the oldest devotees in the entire movement. I think he was 32 years old. And it was maybe 4 or 5 other devotees over 30. Everyone was so young. When I went to Mayapur, I heard about this festival in Mayapur. I was in Calcutta. I ran to devotees. They said, we're doing food relief for Bangladesh refugees. Tamal Krishna Maharaj was able to secure the purchase of the land, which was almost impossible to get. And so Prabhupada declared, we're going to have a Gaur Purnima festival, even though there was nothing. So they built Chutananda built a hut for Prabhupada. There was a men's tent, a women's tent. That was everything in Mayapur. But I ran to a voice and we're doing food relief for Bangladesh refugees. I didn't know what a Mayapur was. I didn't know hardly who Lord Chaitanya was. But I said, sure, I'll go help do food relief. So I went there, and there were 70 devotees there. And only one guest, me. And everyone was zealous preachers. Everyone was virtually, almost everyone was under 25 years old. A few were a little bit older. But almost everyone was under 25 years old. And I wasn't a hippie, I was educated. So Prabhupada understood that this would be problematic. So the reason why perfect questions happen, I think, is Prabhupada kept me in his hut all day with him to protect me from 70 quite zealous preachers. And that was part of the reason. So when Prabhupada left the planet, Bhakti Swami was one of the oldest, and also he was one of the more cultured devotees. A lot of folks came from hippie culture and didn't have much culture. So we were often sadly rough with each other. And it still goes on that way. I mean, some things have improved, but it's almost to be expected. Prabhupada's godbrothers, I personally witness it, were often very rough with him, but Prabhupada dealt with it with grace and dignity. And when people have their own anartas, and due to their anartas, they're kind of rough, and sometimes we have to turn the other cheek. Sometimes we have to stand our ground like Bhakti Swami did in New York. And we have to pray to Krishna to let us know the difference when we should be very strong and fight, when we should turn the other cheek and tolerate things. Bhakti Swami was expert on that. So if we don't know what to do, then we approach confidentially our most trusted God brothers, God uncles, God aunts, whoever it is, and say, what do I do? But the most important thing for Bhakti Swami was the most important thing for Prabhupada, is stay in the society and work together. And sometimes, one time, two devotees were fighting very badly, and Prabhupada got involved. And one devotee said, Prabhupada, I cannot work with so-and-so. And Prabhupada said, you have to, that is your tapasya. Then there was another time, Hridayanand Maharaj tells a story. Prabhupada went to Mexico, and Maharaj was charge of Mexico, and a devotee came to complain to Prabhupada. Hridayanand Maharaj is chastising me, blah, blah, blah. And Prabhupada, devotee left the room. Then Maharaj said to Prabhupada, let me explain why this happened, because the devotee was really doing things that were intolerable. Something had to be done. And Prabhupada said, oh, I already know that. I already know that. He said, and Maharaj often repeats this instruction. He said, but don't break my men. It takes gallons of blood to make a devotee. So he may do his nonsense, you may have to chastise, but don't break him. And that's Bhakti Swami lived by that. I think we all have to live by that. Let me see, more questions. I'm a second generation, and I've seen such mistreatment at a smaller scale. I can see such issues ruin relationships a lot and create an atmosphere of fear and pain. I want to do my part to avoid and change this. Okay. I'd like your question. I'm going to tell you what you can do. You can join ISKCON Resolve. We're the conflict resolution arm. You can write me a letter. I'll put my email in the chat, and I'll put you in touch with Braja Bihari. And this is what we do. Those people who really understand the need to avoid conflict, we send them to school, train them in mediation and ombudsman skill, and they become conflict resolvers. Okay. There's always going to be mistreatment. It's the nature of Kali Yuga. When I was reading the 12th, I was running a BBT division, and we were producing the 12th canto. So I was reading it hot off the press, you might say, or as we're producing it, the manuscript. I'm saying, my God, I'll never see some of these predictions come true. Well, they did. They are coming true. And COVID is just nature's response to our abuse of the earth. Okay, even though Bhakti Swami was a pure devotee, why he undergoes so much ups and downs of his health? After worldwide prayers, why is Krishna change the plan and give more time so we can all benefit? Hard to answer that question without being quite emotional about it. Every day I was praying in front of my altar with this picture, "Oh Krishna, if you so desire, keep Bhakti Swami with us." And it brought me back to the time I was praying every day. As Prabhupada taught us, oh dear Lord Krishna, if you so desire, keep Prabhupada with us. And then Prabhupada left. I was with Prabhupada a month before he left. I'll show you a picture of that. I was with him a month before he left. I was at the Bhaktivedanta Institute conference, Life Comes from Life, in Vrindavan. Prabhupada was too sick to come to the conference, but every day we'd go into his room and give him the Sankirtan report. Here's a picture. You'll see the changing body exhibit here. That's me in the middle. Srup Damodar, Jnana, Sadaputa, Madhava. I'm the only one still left in ISKCON. Oh my. So, and we were praying, and then one astrologer came, famous astrologer, said, Prabhupada's going to recover. He's going to live. I felt so happy. And then a month later, Prabhupada left us. How do I understand this? How do I understand we're all praying and Bhakti Swami left? Here's my understanding of it. Others have shared this, so but I'll just share from my heart what I understand. Is Bhakti Swami wrote a Vyasa Puja offering about 6 years ago, saying, I don't want to be here, I just want to be back with you, Prabhupada. And that offering, I didn't read until after Bhakti Swami left. Somehow I had missed it. I usually always read his offerings because they're so heartfelt, but somehow I missed it. And I said, oh my God. And I burst out crying. But it was time for Bhakti Swami to join Prabhupada's eternal activities, which are serving Lord Krishna in Vaikuntha, some planet where, I don't know, I don't have that ability. But it was time for them to be together again. And we had Bhakti Swami, then Krishna did keep him alive. And kept him alive until the most auspicious day of Guru Purnima, Sanatana Goswami's disappearance day. He kept him alive, and he kept them with us so we could pray and get closer. When Tamal Krishna Maharaj left, we didn't have that opportunity. 1 minute he's here, 1 minute he's gone. And Krishna said, okay, it's time for Bhakti Swami to join Prabhupada for whatever's next, but we're going to keep him here so you can develop your love. Just like Prabhupada stayed around, and even though Prabhupada, when he was up in Rishikesh, had taken back Vrindavan, it's time to leave. Bhakti Swami was so forlorn. You all read this, you know this. Kirtananda came and begged Prabhupada, please don't leave. So Prabhupada took a little something to eat as if he'll try to stay. But Prabhupada knew it was time for him to go. But he stayed a little longer so we can increase our love for him. And then at the auspicious moment, at the right time, he left. Similarly, Bhakti Swami being in that state, Bhakti Swami would never go to a hospital. He would never wanted needles. This one time in his life, he really agreed to do whatever his disciples wanted and the GBC advised him to do. I'm convinced he did it so we could all pray day and night about him for those 2 longest weeks of my life, so we could get closer and closer to him, so when he could leave at the most auspicious moment on the most auspicious day, our love for him increased 1,000-fold, just as Prabhupada stayed around, so our love for him could increase 1,000-fold. So that's my understanding of that. Others may have a different realization. I'd love to hear them. I've had other God brothers speak something similar to mine. Please don't ever accept what I'm saying as some kind of gospel. I'm just giving you my own realizations. Now, the next question. It is our prayer. In our prayer, we didn't mention that if you so desire, please, Maharaj, be with us in Vapupur some more time. Is the correct understanding that Krishna heard our prayer, keep Maharaj with us in that form of Vani so we can continue serving the movement? Yeah. I mean, Bhakti True Swami is as much with you now as Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati was with Prabhupada. And Prabhupada said he was by my side every moment. So, yeah, there's no question of him being with us. Now that he's gone, we can't talk to him, we can't garland him. There's going to be this mourning period. I'll tell you a story. When Prabhupada left us, all of us, like I said, were under 30 for the most part. We had a few old men in the movement. I think Satsarup Maharaj, Rupanuga, Bhakti True were over 30, but hardly anybody. And we didn't know how to mourn properly. In the 5th canto, Prabhupada talks about when the Acharya leaves, how to mourn, and the tears have to come. And then one of the leaders of the movement announced, now it's business more than usual. He was very well-meaning, but very mistaken. And what we should have done then is taken a year off and just mourned Prabhupada. He's gone, just meditated, got deeper, still did our service, but not so much get into who's going to be the next guru and who. And one devotee jumped the gun and started initiating weeks later, which he didn't have permission to do, but he did. Eventually, he even left the movement, but these things happen. And so our business after Prabhupada left was to really have a time in which we do our service, we do our business, but we really go through that mourning. But none of us had parents who even died, hardly any of us. I mean, I had one grandmother who had died when I was 13. That was it. We didn't know death. We didn't know how to mourn. Now we know what we have to do. And this mourning period, this period of grief, takes us closer and closer to Bhakti True Swami. And then when we get on business, he will be with us at every moment. And that I can tell you is true from my own experience. All of our prayers were heard. Krishna had his plan. Remember, Krishna's not our order carrier. He's not our order carrier. Krishna left Bhakti True Swami in that state. Bhakti True Swami, I assure you, wasn't suffering. But he stuck around for our benefit. And at the right moment, he was a yogi, he could leave. So, question. How to get some reciprocation with Maharaj as before? We would write, he would reply, and that letter so life-giving. Something for which to live for, trying to fill what Maharaj told us to do. What to do now? What a beautiful, beautiful question. Yeah, when Prabhupada left, no more letters. Those letters were so dear. They were everything to us. They were our life. Well, fortunately, we have all the letters. And we have his books, and we have Bhakti True Swami's letters and books. And it's the instruction. Some of these instructions are going to come from the heart now. Some of these instructions are going to come from your god brothers, your god uncles, god aunts, God's nieces, God's nephews. All Bhakti True Swami is still with us, and these instructions will still come. It's just, that's part of the grieving. We just don't quite get those letters anymore. But as time goes on, you'll realize, yep, he's still here. I mean, I don't feel that Prabhupada's gone, though the excitement of seeing Prabhupada. I'll tell you one story about Prabhupada for a moment. And it's a little sad that Bhakti True Swami's gone, but this story sticks with me. And each of you have your own Bhakti True Swami story that sticks with you. I didn't get initiated for several years after I met Prabhupada. I was chanting 16 rounds, following principles, but due to circumstances, I wanted to hold off being initiated due to some circumstances. I could go into if there was time, but there's not. And devotees some were very kind to me, some were very immature. What's wrong with you? I was in graduate school, which is unusual for a devotee then. What's wrong with you? Why aren't you initiated? And I was thinking, boy, something is wrong with me. What is wrong with me? And I started really feeling down about myself. And Prabhupada was in New York, and he was going to walk from the Temple Room in Henry Street, from his quarters, Henry Street to Temple Room. So I said, I'm not going to let Prabhupada see my face, because my face is too fallen. So before Prabhupada rounded the corner, I offered obeisances against the wall. It was a narrow hallway, but wide enough for me to do that. The orange started rounding the corner as Prabhupada's sannyasis were coming. I offered obeisances, said the prayers as slow as we could. Namah, Om, Vishnu, real super slow. And then by the time I'd be done, I'd stand up, Prabhupada would be in the temple room, and then I would stand up and I'd just stay in the door of the temple room so Prabhupada didn't have to see such a fallen face. So I was feeling very humble that day. So when Prabhupada walked around the corner, he somehow saw me, though I was on the ground, and he waited and waited and waited, because I wanted the whole entourage to pass before I got up. And when I stood up, there was Prabhupada 1 inch from me. And he looked at me and said, so glad to see you, and gave me a big hug. And Prabhupada wasn't so much of a hugger. That was a very rare moment. I didn't believe it happened. Sometimes we think our mind. And later a devotee said to me, did you see what Prabhupada did? Did you see what he did? Oh, I guess it's true. And that was telling me in my heart that I knew what I was doing was the right thing. And I was going to get initiated at the right time and the right circumstances, which did happen at Rath Yatra in 76. But I knew that, but that was Prabhupada saying, hey, you're doing the right thing. And then when I got initiated, I was thinking, and there were several instances like that where Prabhupada had expressed he was happy to see me. I won't go into details now. Then when I got initiated, I went up to Guru Puja afterwards. Prabhupada wasn't at the actual ceremony, but he came later for Guru Puja. And I went to get a cookie, and I looked Prabhupada right in the face. I thought he'd be so glad to see me. I'm his disciple now. And he looked through me like I was nothing but a piece of glass. Perfectly clean, clear glass, because I was approaching Prabhupada with pride. So when I approached him with humility, he was right there with me. And when I approached him with pride, I wasn't even there. And a few other incidences. It's a longer story. We don't have time for now, but that's the essence of it. So similarly, we have these special incidences with Bhakti Swami. Maybe it's a letter, maybe it was a class he gave that went into our heart. Maybe it was a hug I got. Whatever these are, hold on to them with everything you have and remember them, because Bhakti Swami is still with you. And these letters, these remembrances, these instances are going to remind you of how close he is to you. And as time goes on, you're going to realize, as Prabhupada stated, he actually is with you. So I hope what I'm saying makes sense. I hope I'm not speaking too fast, because I know this is being simultaneously translated. I'll look for more questions. When I'm going too long and it's time for all of you to go to bed, it's morning for me, night for you, just tell me so and I'll be done, because I'm not sure how long I'm supposed to go on these things. I'm looking at questions here. How can an insignificant servant like me serve Bhakti Swami? He was so much advanced, he's skilled and qualified. Well, if you think you're an insignificant servant, I assure you, you'll be able to serve him in that humble state of mind. And in the Shikshashtaka prayers, what does Lord Chaitanya say? Humbler than a blade of grass, more tolerant than a tree. It's only in that humble state of mind that we can do that service. Now, sometimes when we're a leader, we have to be simultaneously humble and lion-like. That's tough. And we're going to make mistakes doing it. Again, Bhakti Swami, that has been one of his great expertise, being lion-like and humble at the same time. But that's something we have to cultivate over time. Let me see. Is there any specific incident relating to hospitality during the meeting you remember? I could go on for a half hour. I mean, the hot water didn't work, and India, my stomach stays fine, but I catch colds real easy. So hot water is important to me. So I sent a little note, and immediately a whole team came in to try to figure out how to fix it. And then I bought enough laundry so I didn't have to bother doing laundry for 3 days. I could wait till I got back to Vrindavan. Somebody came, you have to do your laundry. We have to do it. We have to. They insisted on it. I mean, everything, what could I say? I felt as comfortable there as any place on the planet. Let me see. There's a quote from Bhakti Swami that Sri Radhika sent me. Association devotees is the most reliable thing. Try to find that association, create it, and offer that association. So when I was in Mayapur, 70 devotees were there, and there was one person to preach to, one. And that was me. And so I would say, what do I do to understand better? How do I do it? You have to chant japa. You have to offer your food. You have to do this, have to do that, have to do this. And my mind was so bewildered. So after I left Mayapur, I was in Calcutta, and there was Prabhupada again. I got to see him. It wasn't recorded. So I went to see Prabhupada. I said, Prabhupada, I'm really trying to understand Krishna. And Prabhupada said to me, first you get knowledge, then tapasya would come. So I said, I want to get this knowledge. I don't know what order to do things in. And then Prabhupada gave me the sage advice. He said the most important thing, and the same thing Bhakti Swami said, number one is good association. If you have good association, automatically everything comes. Good association doesn't mean hanging out with someone who wears a dhoti. It means hanging out with someone who I trust. There are people who are devotees who I keep a little distance from. They're not good associates for me. They're always criticizing others. They're not good association. They're talking gossip. I can't hang out with those people. But I can hang out with people who trust me and I trust them. So that's what Prabhupada said to me. That was Bhakti Swami's instruction. Somebody says, I want to take initiation, Maharaj. What do I do? That's not a problem. I can't tell you in detail what to do. But I can talk about something very important here. And Bhakti Swami was accused of being a Ritvik, you know. The really dumb Ritvik magazine they put out always features him in every issue. And Bhakti Swami gave a lecture once talking, I think it was titled, Am I a Ritvik? Something like that. And obviously Bhakti Swami wasn't a Ritvik at all. He believed firmly we need a living guru. He believed in it. But he said, he made the distinction that Rupa Goswami makes in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And he says there's a major distinction between the great Acharya and the Guru. And Rupa Goswami carefully makes that distinction. So who's a great Acharya? Prabhupada. And then we have our gurus. Some gurus may have thousands of disciples, be very powerful. Some may have 2. So Bhakti Swami was adamant that when you join ISKCON, all of you are disciples of Prabhupada in a Shiksha relationship. And you have a Diksha relationship. So those who want to take initiation didn't. First, you'll always have a Shiksha relationship with Prabhupada, always have one with Bhakti True Swami, and then you will find someone, the right person to guide you, and who will be a Diksha guru for you. That and and your primary relationship may be with Bhakti True Swami as your Shiksha guru. It may be with so-and-so as your Diksha guru. It may be with Prabhupada as your Shiksha guru. These are matters of the heart, Shraddha. So I wouldn't worry about these things. They naturally sort everything out. I don't have a pendant, someone says, for reading Prabhupada's books, and Gurudev wants us to. I don't know why I can't. I'd rather wash dishes or clean the temple. What to do? What a nice, honest question. The devotee who asked that, I won't say a name and embarrass anybody, but I say to you, you're a very sincere person to give such a public confession of how you feel. I tell you there's a secret. I have some grandchildren, and some of them are into sports, not reading. They're like 10 years old, but I want them to read. So I take them to the library and I find something that will interest them. So one grandson, I showed him a mystery book called The Hardy Boys. It was a popular mystery book series in America. And he got the book and now he can't put it down and wants more of them. So you find some book, it could be a biography, it could be a Lilamrita, if it's not by Prabhupada, but about Prabhupada. One of my favorite books is Mukunda Goswami's Miracle on 2nd Avenue. Find some book that really interests you. That's either about Prabhupada or by Prabhupada, something, and then get into that. Once you get into that, the reading habit will come, and then Prabhupada's books will naturally flow. And if you're reading Prabhupada's books and some parts of them, let's say, for example, you're not particularly philosophical and you're reading in the Krishna book, the prayers of the demigods, and you're not philosophical, so you may skim over that part and read the part that's more interests you. That's perfectly fine. But first, the way you get in the habit, habits take about a month to form a good habit. So you force yourself for 1 month to find something you really like, get into it. Now you have the reading habit and it will last you the rest of your life. So I think that's all the questions I have. I don't remember. Did I post my email in here? I don't remember.
Yes, Prabhuji, you posted your email.
Okay. And I think I've gone way over time, but for speaking about Bhakti True Swami is something that if I had 1,000 heads of Brahma, I could still not do it all. Anything else I'm supposed to do in service to you?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. We are so much grateful to you for giving us this time. It is definitely your valuable time, but it made us like more valuable to have conversations with you and also to hear about your pastimes with His Holiness Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj. And as we knew from the introduction that you had a conversation with Srila Prabhupada, and during this conversation, I was feeling like maybe more devotees were also feeling that again this is some of the perfect questions and most of the perfect answers. So thank you very much, Prabhuji, for giving your valuable time. We are so much grateful to you, and having this association was more heartfelt and soul-soothing, and we were happy to serve you anytime in Ujjain. So we all request from Ujjain to please visit Ujjain again anytime in future, whenever like airlines and all these facilities start.
Yeah. To be frank, I would never have thought of visiting Ujjain if it wasn't for the GBC meeting. When I go to India, I really just want to go to Vrindavan or Mayapur. But for sure, I would have to visit Ujjain. And it was just because as association's the most important thing. If I'm at a temple that tastes, smells, feels, and gives a whole ambience of Bhakti to Swami, it helps me get closer to him. So by going to Ujjain, we both benefit each other.
Please, Prabhuji, we will be so much blessed to have you here and serve you in Ujjain. So please come as as the time permits, and we
Yeah.
thank you for giving us this time by chanting one Hare Krishna Maha Mantra all together, loud and clear, by raising the hand. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you very much, Prabhuji.
Good night.